What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a final look. Yes, another final look. So many final looks this week. It's like everybody decided to dump their game on the 2nd of November of this year. And so I'm sorry for all the checkups lately, but the fact of the matter is there's not a lot of like fresh stuff coming out, but a lot of things that have been in early access this week are all releasing all simultaneously, and so I guess my work is cut out for me. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Iron Oath, a game that I've spent about 3 hours with prior to the recording of this video, developing some of my first impressions, thoughts about whether or not this is a game you wanted to add to your wish list or otherwise pass on. If after watching this video and hearing my thoughts about the game, you ultimately ended up wanting to get the 1.0 of this title, it is currently available right now. I've got a link for you down below in the description. On top of that, you can also take a look down there and you'll find a link to my Discord and my Twitch stream, just in case you wanted to hang out live. But let's get cruising. What is the Iron Oath? The Iron Oath is basically a fantasy facsimile of Battle Brothers. That's the best way that I know how to put it. After looking at this game for a couple hours, it's very, very clear to me that the developers respect Battle Brothers very much and wanted to make a game that was kind of like Battle Brothers, but simultaneously had magic and sort of fanciful characters like Valkyries, and they wanted to have a game where your character could conjure pillars of fire and throw enemies around with, you know, I guess noxious blasts and things like that. And honestly, the game is close enough to the mark that I think that it probably accomplishes that task. Is he going to be... Oh, he is going to be able to get over there. Unfortunate. However, there are a few stumbles and missteps that we'll talk about round about the end of the video, just to keep in mind before you dive on into the title. What you're seeing right now is a dungeon crawl. This is probably going to be about 80% of the game for you. This is very much a dungeon crawler, and when it comes to dungeon crawling, the game effectively borrows pretty copiously from Warhammer 40k Mechanicus, in that you dive into a dungeon. The longer you spend in the dungeon, the more modifiers that make the dungeon more dangerous continue to get added, continue to be more difficult to deal with, and so it behooves you to kind of strike this balance between risk and reward. How long do I stay in the dungeon versus when do I go to kind of pinch off the loaf and finish off the objective so that I can get out of here? We've got reinforcements coming in on the next turn. Very unfortunate. So this game has kind of like this weird proclivity for spawning reinforcements on you and just like random fights, and it doesn't tell you that it's going to happen before you go into the fight. In my opinion, they should get rid of the reinforcement mechanic altogether. Just remove it from the game, because this is not the only reinforcements you can get. I had a fight just before recording this where they reinforced something like 5 or 6 guys over the course of the fight, and because the enemies have such inflated HP values that take a long time to get through, especially if there's like an elite on the field, you just end up fighting wave after wave after wave after wave. It's kind of like a jarring, obnoxious system. It's not like inherently a bad system, but I do think that if they're going to have it in the game, it should tell you before you go into a combat, hey, this is a reinforcement fight. You're going to be reinforced against. That way you as a player can decide, okay, I'm going to hole up in a corner and I'm going to fight from a defensive position or whatever else. As it stands right now, these reinforcement fights kind of like spawn on you randomly and you never know when they're going to happen. And they seem to spawn way too many mobs as well. Not because it makes the game more difficult, oddly enough. That's not my problem with it. My problem with it is just that it makes mundane fights that don't matter take too long. And so anyways, reinforcements. They got me caught up in one of my pet peeves in like the first 2 minutes of the video. I was trying to go in with like a bunch of positivity and talk about the positive attributes of the game before I started talking about my own little annoyances with it. But, you know, when opportunity arises, you go ahead and strike while the iron is hot. In this game, your characters have a number of charges on their abilities. So I have 5 characters right now. I'll kind of give you some group introductions. We've got ourselves a Lancer over here. The Lancer specializes in flame and fire and using a giant, I guess, halberd or a giant spear to push enemies around, bully them, set up traps, light the battlefield on fire, and otherwise direct the flow of traffic while things are going down. This lady right here is a Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is kind of like a median character in between like a heavy lancer and almost like a skirmisher, like somewhere in between. She's very, very highly mobile. She deals enough damage and can tank enough damage to be considered like a frontline fighter, But by and large, you really don't want her tanking large swaths of the enemy formation if she can help it, because there's other classes that are better equipped for it. Now let's go ahead and see if we can one-shot her real fast with a channeled ability right there. You keep this person pinned in the corner and keep on stabbing. This guy right here is my monk. They call him a pugilist. I call him a monk, though, because he's got like that whole Shaolin vibe going on, which like I'm frankly here for. The only thing he's lacking is he doesn't have, like, the giant Akuma beads, like the giant prayer beads around his neck, but then, like, his character design would be perfect for me. Big crit right there, 129. And so anyways, I think the first thing that's going to grab people about this title is the way that the artwork looks. This game is the receiver of some very, very nice pixel art. As far as, like, random, there's a lot of kind of, like, Mercenary Battle Brothers clones out there that exist. Things like War Tales, stuff like that, that they tend to, like, be going after that Battle Brothers flame, but maybe they ease up on the difficulty or, like, the randomness or whatever else to try to get people in the saddle. There's a lot of these games out there, and I think, like, one of the big appeals of this game is just that it looks really, really pretty. I'm a big fan of pixel art. I like pixel art a lot, so when it shows up in a game like this, I'm usually pretty stoked about it. So you're going to wander around. This is the dungeon map. We got a really simple dungeon map this time around where there was like one path with one fight and then we finish off the quest. Sometimes it's a lot more complicated than that. You never quite know the layout that you're going to get. This game is sort of similar to Darkest Dungeon in the respect that the dungeon layouts can swing wildly from like so easy you basically face roll your way through to so difficult that you're like trying to pan every single corner and figure out where the objective is at and find all your little scouting points and stuff like that if you wanted to get it done. But this one was a fairly simple dungeon. We just walk down one path, take one fight, and we are at the boss. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the timer that determines when new modifiers are going to be added to the fight. So every single dungeon, when you take it as a quest, it's going to have a positive and it's going to have a negative. So this one has Wealth of Knowledge. You have an increased chance of finding runes and knowledge. Okay, we didn't find any runes and knowledge, so whatever. But we've also got burden. We cannot use provisions in combat. That means we can't use our consumables. So that's very, very risky. I suppose we could probably camp. Yeah, let's go ahead and camp right now. We're right up next to the boss anyways, so I don't see any point not to. While camping in a dungeon, you basically are going to click on your incense over here. You get a certain amount of incense charges, and then with your incense charges, you click over here. It depends, like the longer you wait, before you camp, the more incense charges you get, by the way. So you can choose a lot more of these things normally, but since we've only done like one event, and we've only been in the dungeon for like a tenth of a second, we've only got like a healing thing that we can light off. The good news is we didn't get attacked while we were sleeping, which is utterly fantastic. Let's go ahead and take this event. As you move through the hall, a few weak and pleading voices call out to you from an adjacent room. Cautiously, you head in to investigate, your torchlight revealing a group of chained up prisoners, men, women, and children. Yeah, some local villagers asked us to rescue a bunch of people that had been abducted by bandits. Bandits and abducting people, man. You'd think if they were going to abduct people, they would abduct people that have like family money or something, but they always go after the people with turnip-stained teeth. Like, these people ain't got no money. And so anyways, they sent us to go rescue the random turnip-eating peasants, and so here we are, slinging flame and lightning all over the place to rescue them. Please help us. We've been chained here for days with little food and water. These outlaws thought they could ransom us, but I fear they will sooner kill us instead. You hear a muffled shout from the corridor behind you and twist to see a group of bandits rushing into the room with their weapons readied. Looks like we have uninvited guests. I knew they weren't going to let me out of here easy. Luckily, this is a pretty... oh, she spawned on top of a trap. All right. Luckily, I think we can circle the wagons, and we can probably isolate and pound on this side. I'm going to move over to here. This game does have environmental interactions, so for example, if I kick this guy right here, he'll move back by one tile, but if it's obstructed, he'll run into the thing behind him, and he'll take a bunch more damage from it. Like, it'll basically deal double damage to him. And so you want to keep environmental effects in mind as well when planning out your turns and the things that you want to do. This area doesn't have any... like, cracked floors. It doesn't have any flames or anything for me to kick people through. So, you know, it's going to be a little bit simpler of a fight. But there are environmental interactions that you can play around with if you find that to be interesting. So keep a weather eye out for them. We're going to stab that guy to death. There are hit rates in this game. I know that annoys a lot of people when there's hit rates in a title like this. So, for example, when you attack an enemy, you don't have a guaranteed chance to hit. In this game, you definitely don't have a guaranteed chance to hit unless you're using special abilities. So your default attack is the only thing in the game that has a hit chance. And you can make that a little bit better. I don't know if I want to send him down here. It feels kind of risky. I mean, I guess they're both going to get to smack him anyways. I might as well open strong. He may not survive this, though. Your characters are pretty fragile in this game. We'll go ahead and fart flames on everybody, and hopefully that works out okay. Reinforcements were not as bad as expected. I thought reinforcements were going to be kind of bad, but I think we'll be all right. Let's kick him into the wall right there. We basically need to get, this guy's going to hit for about half his health meter every single turn because he's an elite. And so we want to watch out for that for sure. Basically, our guardian over here, which is like a paladin, she's going to be sitting around the whole time spamming heals on this guy to keep him alive until we can get one of these two mobs off of him. And that's pretty much all there is to it. The good news is I'm going to double move the Valkyrie to get down to here because she has a lot of cleaves and a lot of mobility abilities. I'm going to move him down to here, and we are going to start channeling a big nuclear attack on the elite right there. It's going to take 3 or 4 pass turns for this to go off, but it's going to deal a lot of damage. Now, when I say pass turns, I don't mean like full rounds of everybody taking an action. Basically, 4 players' actions will go by, then he will drop the bomb, although it looks like 7 for him right now, or 8. Let's go for, I've got more fire. Yeah, keep it going out. Why not? All right, so respawns are now officially here. We kick that guy in the face just to mitigate some damage. Big swing out right there to my Lancer. They summoned a dog deer, and look, he's wearing like a... He's got a fun little... He's got a little dog hoodie on, bro. I got a bulldog that has like no hair, and he always gets cold in the wintertime, but he refuses to wear his jacket. And we've got like a selection of little hoodies for him, but he refuses to wear them. He gets upset, and he walks around just like pawing at the air, trying to get it to come off. And so it's like, dude, so if I take the hoodie off of you, you just lay on my lap and try to get under the blankets and stuff all day. But if you have the hoodie on, you're clearly warmer, you're clearly more comfortable, but you like lose your mind. You're like, get it off, get it off, get it off. Like, try to solve a problem for your little fuzzy buddy, and he just won't let it happen. Now, as I was mentioning, there are ways in this game to mitigate randomness. Those ways to mitigate randomness are called flanking. So if you have 2 characters on the opposite side of a mob, you get what's called flanking. And so basically anybody attacking that mob, because they have 2 units with adjacency on both sides of them, will have a 100% hit rate. And so this game does reward kind of like smart movement, I guess, and smart plays. If you're trying to knock out enemies in an effective way, you're definitely going to want to be flanking. You're definitely going to want to stick and move a little bit and set people up to be in spots where they can really inflict some damage on these guys. I was hoping that would kill him, but I guess I dreamed a little. Oh, wow, he just got crunched. I was going to say, if she throws the bird at him, he might go down. Death is not the end in this game. It follows D&D rules. When your character goes down, they basically have blood pips that will show up next to them, or like bleed out pips. Enemies will continue to focus fire and kill them, by the way, in case you were wondering. So you can hit a guy that's on the ground that's not dead yet. Every time he takes a hit, it will fill up his bleed out. Every turn, it also gets bleed out. When he gets up to the top, he dies permanently, and then you got to replace that mercenary. And so, people... Oh, that was not a warrior that I moved over here. That's my bad. I got the wrong person over on this side. All right, everybody swing back around. Oh, well, that was a waste of your turn. Congratulations. Good job. Normally, the AI plays pretty smart in this game. They focus fire, they pick a target, and they stay on it. And so that was actually kind of surprising. That must have been programmed like every X amount of turns they're supposed to lay down a trap or something. Anyways, we got a Kestis from that deal, which is good because I haven't been able to upgrade my pugilist at all the entire time I've been playing. I found no loot for him the entire game, so that's fantastic. You unhook a key from one of the bandits' belts, handing it to Helena, who walks over to the hostages and releases them from their restraints. The man who spoke before approaches you with an extended hand. Thank you. I don't think we would have survived much longer. We should leave quickly, though. Many more will soon be returning to the fort. All right, we can get out of here. I see no reason. I don't know. I haven't found the dungeons to be profitable enough to, like, stay in them past doing the quest that you're there to do. I haven't dithered, like, at all while I've been playing the game. So that'll give him 8 more damage on a hit. It gives him a 3% chance higher to hit. And it looks like he gets some extra crit chance in there too, which is nice. I'll take that. That's not bad. After doing a dungeon, your characters are going to be fatigued. The good news is we're just going to go back to town and rest for a couple of days before we take on like a bigger objective. But for right now, all of your characters have 6 abilities. There are, I think, 6 classes, 7 classes. Actually, they added a bard or something. So there's Hunter, Bard, Paladin, Storm Mage, Monk, Valkyrie, and then the Fire Spear guy, I think, are the ones that I've seen so far. I haven't played around with the Bard yet, so I don't know if he's good or not. I haven't even seen a Bard ready for recruitment just yet, so I'm still playing around with some of the default classes. And honestly, since you can only take 5 guys into combat, it doesn't really matter. I actually think this would be a much better game if it had larger battlefields and it had like 10 units on the field at a time instead of like 5 at a time. It would be a much more interesting game, I think. But then again, this is one of those games where like there's a lot of things that are done to like an exceptional quality, but it's kind of lacking in depth, I guess. So we've covered this game a number of times over the years where I think the thing about covering early access games is you are always sort of thinking about like, okay, so where is this gonna go? You know what I mean? Like, how far down the path does this need to go in order to get more depth and get to where it needs to be for a 1.0? This game, unfortunately, in my opinion, there's a lot of things this game does well, but unfortunately, it's lacking in depth, I think, along like almost every single margin. And so we'll talk about why that is at the end of the video, but I don't want to get sidetracked. Right now, we're leveling up. And so every single ability has a talent tree. Every time you level up, you get upgrade points. And so you put these into one of the abilities to kind of specialize and get stronger. I've been putting everything into heals because I find that having every single character with some kind of heal or something like that has just been a really, really positive thing to have for completing dungeons. Increasing your survivability early has been a strategy that has really paid off for me. He's got Cleave. Oh, really? If a killing blow is dealt on the first hit, strike an adjacent enemy. Cool. I'll probably go with Potency right there. More damage, yeah, for sure. Did I already put his points in? I didn't put his points in. His accuracy is really, really good. I'm going to keep focusing on getting his evasion up, though. If I can get his evasion up to like 20 or 30%, then I can start focusing on his damage and we'll be good to go. Aside from getting your specialization point, you also get attribute points over here. The game puts a star next to the stuff that matters. It's small increments, so one level up is not going to make or break a character in this game like it does in Battle Brothers. So, like, a really big pickup in Battle Brothers would be, like, Battle Forged. This game doesn't have the equivalent of that. You just have flat stats, and you increase them. If you dump all of your points on a turn, or I'm sorry, on a level up into a character, let's say in Power, and they have a star in it, you'll probably get like 4 to 5 extra damage out of that character for a level up. And your average character probably does about 90 damage on a hit. So you're looking at like every level up is about 5-6% increase in efficiency for healing and attack. I do wish that there was kind of like more perks and things to kind of make these characters unique from one another. But like I said earlier, this game suffers from, it's got like a lot of cool quality things, but it suffers from a lack of depth in nearly like every regard, unfortunately. Especially when you compare it to other compatriots of the genre like War Tales or like Battle Brothers that are effectively the same game, but just kind of like better. Let's go ahead and with our Mathilda Red Forest. She's my Valkyrie, right? What do I want to do with my Valkyrie? Her accuracy's kind of bad, but I use her to flank a lot. So I kind of feel like just give her some damage. Yeah, I mean, I feel like she doesn't hit hard enough. I feel like I'm consistently disappointed with how hard she hits. And then I'll probably upgrade Take Flight, maybe? What was I upgrading on her? Oh, apparently I was upgrading Skewer. Okay. I think I was moving her towards getting Stuck Pig, which is basically like a World of Warcraft style Mortal Strike. It makes it so your enemy can't be healed, so you can focus and burn them down. And I've had a couple of enemies in this game that just get like 150 heals every single turn, and it will drive you crazy. I'll probably unlock Infernal Pillar on this guy. I really like Return to Cinder because it allows me to booby trap the battlefield. But I don't know. Infernal Pillar is an AoE that does like 180 damage. This game really boils down to kind of being like a slugfest. Like you establish your flanks, and then it's just a war of attrition. So I tend to favor everything in this game that hits harder, heals harder, or DPS is faster, because that seems to be the effective strategy. I'm going to keep on putting points into you, sir. 4 more damage on you. Okay. That epic spear, though, man, that epic spear is such a nice pickup that I got. Let's head on back to town. Now, this is the world map. It is very, very gorgeous. I like this world map very much. I wish more games had a world map that looked as good as this game's world map. There are a number of cities, a number of places you can go. I don't know if this area unlocks later on in the storyline. The game does have a narrative. The narrative seems to be your standard Shadowrun style story of like you've been betrayed by an employer, therefore you need to do jobs throughout the land to figure out who did it, who done it, and how you can put them to the sword and take them out in order to reclaim your lost honor. We're going to the city. We'll turn in this job real fast. The rescued hostages are reunited with their friends and families. Employer walks over to you with a smile fixed upon his face. Thank you for rescuing them from those damn bandits. The people here owe you a debt. He hands you a sack of jingling coins. A few concerned citizens chipped in, so I hope this reward will suffice. You certainly deserve it. So every time you do a job, you get renown. You also get popularity in the town that you work for. You may get bonus items, so this was a very profitable quest for us. We got a lot of stuff out of it. You can take it straight to the marketplace if you want. There is a trade system in the game. I haven't fooled around with it too much, but I have been observing while I cruise around the hinterland, and there are little oddities that I've seen so far. For example, this place produces pelts, as far as I can tell, and yet they're still priced above the average price. But you would think in a place where pelts are produced, the price would be lower. Or like, for example, they hunt meat over here, and yet the meat is currently like 16% over market value. You know what I mean? Like, it's just little things like that that I've noticed. I haven't played around with the trading, though, because it hasn't really been necessary. I've made such a large amount of money just from like doing quests and things of that nature that I haven't really struggled for cash the entire game. Like, I'm kind of like swimming in cash. I don't actually have anything to spend it on, and so I haven't really had to interact with it at all. At the inn, these places are all animated when you go inside them. That's a very, very nice detail. You can buy around to raise people's morale. You can recruit other characters if you wanted to do so. There are gender-locked classes in this game. I know that's a tilt for some people. It's never a thing that bothers me, unless I have to play the gender-locked character, and then it annoys me. So like, if I'm playing like an MMO, and I have to be like a certain gender in order to play like a monk, I'm like, like, just add both and let people choose. But in this game, where I don't have any personal attachment to any of the characters that I'm playing, weirdly enough, don't really care that the classes are gender-locked. But for people that care about that, classes are gender-locked. You can only have a male monk, you can only have a female huntress, so on and so forth. I'm supposed to be hunting a guy named Damon, so I'm probably going to go hunt him. Let's go see if we can handle a 2-skull quest. I feel like my guys are ready. I feel like they can handle it. As you scour the forest in search of the cabin, Helena calls out in front of you, kneel down and inspecting the snow. As you walk over, they turn and glance up at you, the tips of their fingers spotted with blood. Fresh kill. They gesture towards an impression in the snow. Elk, perhaps. Some tracks leading away, too. Helena grabs a fistful of snow as they stand upright, rubbing it into their hands to clean off the blood. Alaric leans in next to you, keeping his voice low. I think we're close, sir. Let's hope he hasn't spotted us. He looks around with a furrowed brow. These woods offer little concealment. You trace the tracks to a small clearing, a log cabin standing in the midst of it, and a figure emerges from inside, frowning in your direction with a bow in hand. He whistles sharply. A group of warhounds come to his side with their teeth bared at your presence. There you go. I'll probably play out this combat, and we'll talk about what I like and what I don't like about this game in the 1.0. So this is going to be one of those games that, like, right here at the beginning of the rundown, you no doubt probably extrapolated. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the Iron Oath. Its only sin is really that it's standing too close to other games that have the exact same premise that execute that premise better. And, like, I think that the Iron Oath does a lot of things properly. The audio design, the pixel art design, the world design, and the map, the narrative. Pretty much everything that has to do with the presentation portion of the game is all top-notch work, full marks. It looks great. Soundtrack is an absolute banger. The pixel art looks fantastic. The attacks are fluid. They're chunky. They sound good, and you feel the impact. There's some solid camera work there. However, once you put a few hours into the game, it does become repetitive. So other games avoid this. So I really don't like basing an entire game's review on other games, but like this is so similar to other ones that you kind of have to. So like War Tales avoids this by inviting you to new zones every 5 or 6 hours. And the new zones will have new politics. They have new enemies. They have new narratives. They have new intrigue. They have new places to adventure and explore, that kind of stuff. There's a visual change in between zones, basically. Battle Brothers solves the repetitive nature of its core gameplay loop by making every single character hugely customizable, both visually and stats-wise. And then on top of that, every single decision, financial, combat, or otherwise that you make in Battle Brothers is a down and dirty dogfight for survival. That intensity and also that customization makes you ignore the fact that you've been doing like the same 8 sets of quests for the last 50 hours. The randomization inside those quests and the ways that classes interact with those quests also help with that. And those are the kind of things that I'm trying to point out where Iron Oath stumbles a little bit. I was hoping that over the course of this game's early access, we would end up with the stuffing of the game fleshed out a bit more, because the bones were always good, but it looks like that kind of didn't happen. I mean, the stat system is functional. It's a little bit sterile. It's unimpactful, I guess. Like, getting like 5 damage per turn is not that interesting, I suppose. I found that the upgrading of abilities is kind of passive. So, like, this one's kind of like in the middle. Like, so I think ideally, in a perfect world, every single node for every single ability that you put an upgrade point into, that ability should change in a tangible way every time you put in a point. It's kind of hit or miss. Like, a lot of the things in each tree for each ability are going to be passive, and usually there's like 2 or 3 in there that sort of like tactically change the viability of that ability. And so I'd like to see that worked on a little bit. I would like to see the trade system kind of, I guess, expanded on a little bit. The interactivity between towns and things going on. That all kind of falls flat, I guess, here. It's the extra stuff, like I said, that's all. Everything here is done average and up to spec with no extra fluff on top once you get past the visual portion of the game. And so what I found is that once I got around 4 hours into the game, I was just kind of cruising around the map, spamming missions, maxing out my rep, making money that I didn't even really need because there was nothing to really spend it on. And so, you know, like, I found the narrative to be nice. I really, really like the storyline. Like, the main narrative storyline is cool, and the world building that they did here is really, really awesome. This place does have an interesting world, and it does have an interesting storyline. This is not your average fantasy sort of game in that regard. But as I mentioned, most parts of this game are fine. The problem is that it's standing in a room full of games with the same premise that are exemplary, and it manages to do some things very, very well, but at the end of the day, my job is to be consumer-facing. That is to say, my job is to give you an appraisal about whether or not a game is worth it with all of these factors taken into account, not sort of like drum up sales by accentuating the parts of the game that are better than average while ignoring the flaws. And so the simple truth here is that there are nearly identical games that, if you don't mind the omission of magic and fantasy, are just simply better than the Iron Oath. So Battle Brothers from Overhype and War Tales from Shiro, they do a much better job at fleshing out their mechanics and their game world and the amount of things that you can do and the amount of depth in their systems. Iron Oath didn't do anything particularly wrong. Its older brothers are just both valedictorians. That's pretty much it. So I guess if you own Battle Brothers and War Tales and you want another Sandbox Mercenary romp with pixel art, and you don't mind the repetitive nature of the game and the fact that there are still a lot of things that are kind of just like not fully fleshed out in the accompanying systems, but all the main systems work, you'll probably be fine here. But in general, I would probably recommend Battle Brothers or War Tales over this one now that it's hit 1.0. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. My name is Splattercat. I sift through the pile to find what's worthwhile in the world of indie games every single day so that you don't have to. Today up on the chopping block, we were checking out the Iron Oath. Tomorrow, it'll be something else. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I gots to go. Bye, folks.